Hello everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to explore a fascinating topic with you. Today, we'll be examining the tension between scientific objectivity and social advocacy in psychological research. The first slide introduces our main theme, dealing with diversity in psychology, science, or ideology. Over the next few slides, we'll look at how these forces interact, challenge, and shape the way we understand human behavior. So, let's dive in and get started. Let's take a closer look at what's at stake here. Scholars are increasingly questioning whether the arguments activists put forward are actually shaping psychological science, and whether they might even be distorting it. This is a critical concern because the integrity of our discipline could very well depend on how we respond to these questions. Now, this brings us to a fundamental issue. Is psychology truly pursuing diversity as a means to achieve scientific objectivity? Or has it shifted into embracing ideological advocacy? This is a key point because it touches on the core purpose of scientific inquiry versus the influence of social or political agendas. At the heart of this discussion is what I'd call the central tension, science versus ideology. This isn't just a minor debate. It's about whether our research is driven by a genuine desire to understand the truth or by a set of ideological commitments. This question is essential because it influences how we interpret data, how we set research agendas, and ultimately, how we advance the field of psychology. Let's talk about diversity at every level of publication. It's important to diversify the individuals involved in research, from the authors to the peer reviewers. Requiring participant diversity in peer review and demanding clear justification of sample demographics can really help move us toward more inclusive science. Now, one key issue is that white authors are less likely to include samples of color in their studies. This creates a feedback loop, where the experiences of marginalized groups become less represented, and that limits the scope of what we study and understand. When we look at who is publishing and editing, we see that predominantly white authors and editors hold most of the power in the publication pipeline. Interestingly, white editors are actually less likely to publish research focusing on race, which further narrows the research landscape. A comprehensive analysis of over 26,000 articles published between 1974 and 2018 reveals deep structural imbalances. These inequities in authorship and editorial gatekeeping shape what gets studied and published, and they reflect broader systemic biases. Overall, addressing these inequalities is crucial for advancing a more equitable and comprehensive psychological science. It's about creating a research environment that truly reflects diverse experiences and voices. Hamel argued that uncritically absorbing political activist arguments into scientific frameworks threatens the independence and credibility of psychological science. When ideology sets the agenda, evidence follows, rather than leads. Worrying signs of ideological thinking and activism, Bernard Hamel pointed out, can distort our understanding and undermine the objectivity that is so vital to science. His response to Roberts et al. 2020 highlights a critical concern. If we let political or ideological motives drive our research, we risk compromising the integrity of our findings. This critique underscores the importance of maintaining scientific independence and letting evidence guide us, rather than the other way around. It's a reminder that science must remain objective to truly advance our understanding of human behavior. So here's an important point to consider. A science that focuses only on demographic diversity, like race, gender, or ethnicity, while ignoring other forms of diversity, such as intellectual or methodological diversity, might actually end up creating a different kind of homogeneity. Essentially, we could be trading one narrow form of sameness for another. Roberts and colleagues in 2020 looked closely at this issue. They primarily examined a very specific, social justice-oriented view of diversity. While that's certainly important, it can sometimes overshadow the broader scientific benefits that come from embracing cognitive, methodological, and viewpoint diversity. And that's why understanding how we define diversity is so crucial. It's not just about ticking boxes for demographic representation. It's about recognizing the full spectrum of differences that drive innovation, critical thinking, and scientific progress. So, when we talk about diversity, we need to be clear about what we mean and why it matters. Because, ultimately, a truly diverse scientific community is one that values many kinds of differences, and that's what fuels discovery and understanding. This narrowing of perspectives directly undermines the validity in social psychological science, leaving blind spots where contrarian hypotheses go untested. When our field becomes too ideologically homogeneous, we risk missing important insights and alternative explanations that could challenge prevailing theories. This has serious scientific consequences because, over recent decades, academic psychology has experienced a dramatic decline in political diversity. Instead of a broad range of viewpoints, research tends to concentrate around specific ideological perspectives, which can skew findings and limit the robustness of our conclusions. It's important to understand that political diversity isn't just a social good, it's a scientific necessity. Having diverse viewpoints helps us produce more valid and replicable psychological research. When we include different perspectives, we reduce biases and improve the overall quality of our science. Haidt and Jussim's argument highlights this point clearly. They emphasize that viewpoint diversity isn't just about fairness, but about strengthening the scientific process itself. This is what we mean by the case for viewpoint diversity. It's essential for advancing a more comprehensive and reliable understanding of human psychology. So, fostering a variety of perspectives isn't just desirable, it's crucial for the integrity and progress of our field. Let's talk about the perception problem when it comes to questioning equity policies. Often, people conflate challenging these policies with denying the reality of systemic racism or gender discrimination. This is a false equivalence that can shut down legitimate scientific debate. Some scholars have reported facing professional consequences simply for questioning the prevailing narratives. This creates a climate where dissent is discouraged and open inquiry becomes difficult. We also see a perceived culture of ideological conformity, which discourages anyone who might hold different views from speaking up. This can lead to a hostile environment that discourages honest discussion. Because of this, those with non-progressive or alternative views may choose to leave the field of academic psychology altogether, to self-select out, so to speak. So, why are non-liberals underrepresented? The hostile climate argument suggests that the environment itself discourages diverse perspectives, making it harder for different viewpoints to thrive. Altogether, these issues contribute to a perception of a climate that stifles debate and diversity of thought, which ultimately impacts the progress and integrity of the field. So, moving beyond just talking about these issues is crucial. We need concrete recommendations and, importantly, institutional accountability, especially for BIPOC scholars. It's not enough to acknowledge disparities, we have to take action. One key point is applying different levels of rigor to research depending on the scholar's demographic identity. This means recognizing that standards shouldn't be one-size-fits-all, and we need to adapt our expectations and evaluation processes accordingly. However, we're also seeing practices that reinforce methodological conformity and segregate theories based on researcher identity. These practices can limit diversity of thought and reinforce existing biases, which is a problem we must address. Another critical point is the idea of homogeneity and segregation within the field. Scholars argue that systemic racism in psychology actively sustains white supremacy, not just through overt prejudice, but through embedded structural practices that perpetuate inequality. Ultimately, upending racism in psychological science means challenging these ingrained structures. We need to rethink how research is conducted, evaluated, and valued to create a truly inclusive and equitable discipline that reflects and serves all communities. Now, let's look at how core domains like cognition, perception, development, and mental health tend to stay largely apolitical. These areas are rooted in the scientific method, which is designed to test claims against reality and is built with safeguards to resist ideological influence. Essentially, science aims to be objective and evidence-based, regardless of political trends. When we consider where science prevails, especially in psychology, it's clear that many of its studies on racism, sexism, social inequality, and environmental issues naturally intersect with progressive concerns. This overlap often gives the impression that the field leans politically liberal, but it's important to understand that these topics are studied because they're critical to understanding human behavior and societal impacts. However, where politics come into play is when these scientific findings intersect with policy debates and ideological positions. The political leanings in psychology can be nuanced, and it's crucial to recognize that the field isn't monolithic. Different researchers and practitioners may have varying perspectives, and their interpretations are sometimes influenced by the broader political environment. So, while science itself strives for neutrality, the application and discussion of its findings can be influenced by political considerations. This is why understanding the distinction between scientific inquiry and political interpretation is so important in our overall exploration today. When we talk about true robustness in psychology, what really matters is embracing diversity in both demographics and viewpoints. Only by doing that can we genuinely claim to have achieved objectivity. It's not just about including different groups of people, it's also about valuing different perspectives and ideas. Now, this idea ties into a bigger picture. The pursuit of social justice and the goal of rigorous scientific inquiry are not inherently at odds. In fact, they can complement each other, but only if we navigate that path carefully and with transparency. It requires us to be open and honest about the challenges and trade-offs involved. Diversity in psychology isn't purely scientific or purely ideological. It's a balance. Honest engagement means holding that tension, recognizing that both aspects are essential. We need to be scientifically rigorous while also being open to different cultural and social viewpoints. In the end, aiming for a more robust and self-aware psychology means acknowledging this complexity. It's about continuously questioning ourselves, understanding the limits of our knowledge, and striving to incorporate multiple perspectives. Only then can psychology truly serve everyone and reflect the richness of human experience.